Greetings, folks, as you're coming in. This is a webinar format so that the only people you're going to be able to see will be our panelists, which are myself, Emery DeGiorgio, the SFT 2275 Vice President, Tina Zappili, who is the SFT 2275 Lead Negotiator, and Stacy Rose, who is SFT 2275's Treasurer, Joe Everett, who's our Vice President of Professional Staff, and Maria Spade, who is our utility infielder and covers pretty much everything under the sun. And we're just going to continue to let people come in for a little bit. We are going to record this, and then we'll put this up into our usual locations where we've been putting up our presentations. Let's see, we've got about 67 right now. We'll wait probably another 5-10 minutes. I know people are probably coming from their classes, having just logged off, coming in over to join us, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Let me say that we're going to do the webinar the same way we've been doing the webinars before, which is we're going to have a chat function open and a Q&A function open. We're going to have people monitoring those two. As those questions come in, they will filter them over to me or one of the other panelists. The challenge I do want you to keep in mind is that this particular topic is one where we may have to say to you that we're going to research your questions further. In other words, this will be one where we are more likely to, if you ask us a question in the chat or the Q&A section, that we wind up saying, thank you, we're going to copy that down and we'll look into it further. This should be available for others. We're recording it, and we'll place it up with our normal presentations that we've been doing. So we have about 70 people, I think just a couple more minutes, and then we'll go ahead and begin. I'm trying to make sure I've turned off all of my devices so you don't hear any beeping or anything taking place while I talk. All right, we're still at around 72, 73 people. Just another minute or so. All right, it looks like it's stabilized at around 72 people. Let's go ahead and start. And then as people join, again, since we are recording it, you can always go back and view this later on. Now, because this is fairly technical, I'm going to use a PowerPoint to walk my way through this process. As I do, if the panelists have been instructed that if there's anything I say which they feel could be either clarified or that I might have misstated, they're going to jump in to correct me on it. And so you may see us stop this at various points and go back to share screen, away from share screen, and so on. But let me now go to share screen. And are we seeing the presentation? Okay. All right. This is our disclaimer going into this. And I can't stress it strongly enough. In fact, I will probably repeat it multiple times throughout this presentation. but we are not by any means legal experts when it comes to the area of unemployment law. We're not any kind of experts when it comes to the area of unemployment. What we have done is reached out to our colleagues in CWA, as well as our SFT 2275 members who've already been through the process, and asked them to help us put together this presentation as a way of giving you a sense of what you will be encountering when you apply for unemployment. So I'm presuming that many of you out there that are watching this are, like myself, people who have never in their lives actually applied for unemployment. So the whole process is one long mystery to you. Well, so that's partly what our goal here is to try to demystify some of that as we go through. Let me go ahead and start now. Again, I've said this earlier, but I'm going to say it one more time before we go. As we go through this, down below you should see there is still the chat function and the Q&A function. You can ask questions of our panelists, but this webinar, unlike some of the other ones we've done, we are very likely to say, thank you for that question. Let us copy it down and see what we can do about getting an answer for you. This is less likely to be one of those webinars where we feel like we can just leap in and give you the answer. Where we think we can, we will, but I just want that as a heads up. All right, so with that in mind, this is the basic structure to this presentation. It has essentially 4 phases. One is the background to the furloughs. The second phase is setting up your account. The third is actually applying for unemployment. And the fourth is certifying your weekly benefits. So some background context for this. This is not the first time that workers such as ourselves have been furloughed in New Jersey. The members of SFT 2275 went through this back in 2009 during what's sometimes called the Great Recession. This was when the crash came through in terms of all the mortgages and all that stuff, and there was a severe financial crisis. And so we, at that time, went through this same sort of process of going through negotiating with management in order to be able to protect the jobs of the people that were involved. Okay, now that MOA back in 2009, which was also about furlough days, allowed members to select all of their furlough days, just so long as they did not select a furlough day on which they were scheduled to teach, or if a professional staff member or a librarian was required to do essential work on that day. Now, part of the background context to what we're doing this time needs to be understood then. One of the furloughed individuals back in 2009 grouped all of his days together into a full week and applied for unemployment. If you only apply, so if you're only unemployed one day and it's spread out, so let's say you have 8 furlough days and you spread them out over a 10-month period, you're not going to be able to apply for unemployment for that single day. It's not going to generate enough of an unemployment for you to be able to do so. But this individual pooled together all of their furlough days and put them in a single week and then applied for unemployment. The state ruled against him, saying that because he was able to choose his days that he was being furloughed on, he could have spread them out over the year and thereby been avoided being unemployed for that week. And so they said, since you had the choice, you're not technically able to apply for unemployment. This time through, the state decided that they would simply designate the furlough days for the individual members. The upside of this was that by structuring them in the way I'm about to lay out, it meant that the state was determining that we would be unemployed for these 5-day units. Now, since the state was determining this, and it was not a matter of our choice, we thereby were eligible for unemployment. So On us, with us today as three of the panelists are three professional staff, Stacy Rose, Joe Everett, and Maria Spade, and all of them have been through this process. All of them applied for unemployment, and all of them received unemployment precisely for these reasons. Now, in this particular MOA, there are 12 furlough days that the institution can assign. It is not, I will point out, required that the institution assign them. They have discretion. If management decided suddenly not to do the 12 furlough days for the individuals, they could choose to do so. But the MOA allows them to do this. Now, in some cases, they have, in fact, assigned fewer than 12 days in order to be able to address or redress certain discrepancies that they were concerned with. So, for example, certain professional staff who were unable to apply for this during the month of July and thereby missed the extra money that had been available through the programs, the institution has thereby decreased their number of furlough days. Let me move on. So what is the same? Well, in both cases, in 2009 and this, it was based on and structured in line with the master agreement. This is, if you are ever interested, all part of the master agreement as a way of the unions being able to negotiate with management to protect people's jobs. And one of the options in there is the idea of furloughs. And it was the same thing that we did back then. Now, there was the same thing for professional staff back then. They had to do a different code when they were putting in their furlough days back in 2009. I want to bring this point out because some of you have already reached out to Human Resources, and some of you received a somewhat puzzling email back from Human Resources in which it said, well, Professor DiGiorgio, you'll need to code this differently when you log in. Now, what they were referring to is the fact that the professional staff and the librarians are required to fill out timesheets. And in those timesheets, they have various spots that they are to put in various kinds of information about why they're doing one thing versus another. Faculty don't do this. Faculty do have timesheets, but for each of the schools, there is an individual designated within that school, believe it or not, yes, known as a super user, who is the individual that fills that out for faculty. Now, the reason I'm dragging you through all this is that you were probably puzzled if you did reach out to Human Resources and say, okay, what do I do? And they said, well, you need to code in the following way. Well, no, you don't. In fact, I've already reached out to all of the assistant deans, and they've said, oh, okay. Don't tell the faculty not to worry about it. The only thing you do need to do is you will need to tell your assistant dean or whoever they tell you to pass it along to, which of your furlough days, your one furlough day, do you want for what day it's going to be. So let me just walk through this. All of us have the Friday after Thanksgiving is a mandated furlough day that's simply implemented by management. There is one furlough day which we choose for ourselves. It cannot occur on a teaching day in the case of a faculty member, but we select what that furlough day is. So that's what your assistant dean will need. They'll just need that one day. And you can, frankly, you can put it, I think, anywhere up until sometime in June, in which you can put down that one day. Now, the remaining 10 days are to be issued in blocks of 5 each. The second set will be in spring term, and the first set has been sent to each member, I believe, each faculty member by Human Resources. I'm going to use myself as an example. Human Resources sent me an email saying, dear Professor Jackson, you will be furloughed starting on January 4th. So it was the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I am furloughed those 5 days. That is not a matter of choice on my part. It is the management implementing this, saying this is when you will be furloughed. They'll be doing something similar for spring term. Again, if any questions come in that Emery or whoever else is manning the Q&A want me to amplify on, I'll be glad to about this. So the second set will be in spring break. Now, so the thing I'd like to point out to all of you is that none of you who are currently watching this will be applying for unemployment any sooner than that first block of furlough days. In other words, I will not be applying for unemployment until January, because that will be the first time in which I will have enough unemployment days strung together to be able to qualify for unemployment. So partly I want to reassure you that this is not something you need to be preparing to do next week or the week after that or anything further. The odds are very good that we may wind up doing a version of this again in December as we get closer to that date, just as a quick reminder of all of these things. Okay, so unemployment is possible for you because, again, I cannot stress this enough, it's management that is dictating the amount of time you are unemployed. You did not have a choice in this matter. What is more, you are willing to work. That is, it was not your choice to stop working. These days in which have been designated as your furlough days are not ones you said, hey, I think I'll just stop working during this time period. What is more, you are available to work. It's not the case that you're going to say in January, oh, by the way, I'm unavailable. No, you were available. You were quite willing to be able to. You meet the earnings requirement. That is, you have earned enough being employed to be able to do it. And finally, you work in New Jersey. Now, it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter if you're a Delaware resident. It doesn't matter if you're a Pennsylvania resident. It doesn't matter if you're a New York resident. Unemployment, for our purposes here, is determined by where you work. And you work, if you're attending this, at Stockton. So how much can you receive? This is the most recent set of data I was able to receive. It may have been adjusted since then, but I think it will give you at least a sense of what exactly in a rough way, what you'll be looking at in terms of it. Because like you, I'm going to have to budget for these days, right? Because this unemployment is not going to replace my normal weekly salary, all right? It will make a dent in it. It will certainly be extremely helpful to have at least some of this, right? But it's not going to replace my weekly salary. So my most recent research said that the weekly benefit is 60% of your average weekly wage with a maximum of $598. And then that benefit is increased by 7% for the first dependent and 4% for the next 2 dependents with a maximum of 3 dependents. All right. So that's how they're going to calculate how much you could possibly get. Anything from my fellow panelists at the moment? Okay. And as I say, this is yes, Emery.
Roger, with that 60%, do you know if it's from the net or the gross?
I believe it's from the gross.
Okay, from the gross. And addition, I want to address, someone chimed in that it's the regular wages, not overloads for faculty, and that is true. That is based on the base salary, not
your base salary.
Right, exactly. Right. I believe there's a question about benefits deductions. Will that be covered later on in the PowerPoint?
No, it won't be covered later on. Sorry, I mean actually the PowerPoint goes on interminably, but the issue about benefits, your benefits will continue to be paid by the institution. But here again, I want to turn to our professional staff colleagues. During the time period where you were on your furlough, were your benefits continuing to be covered by the institution?
Yes, so our benefits continued, but with the deduction, the deduction for the weeks that we were furloughed was staggered over 2 additional paychecks, I believe. And so they sent us that information via email, which paychecks they were going to kind of make up the deductions instead of taking it all out of your next paycheck, which would burn.
Right. So they will presumably be doing the same thing with those of you who have not done this yet, which is because again, you know, we won't be paid by the institution during that week. So if they obviously you know, quite rightfully did not want to also, you know, have us owe money for our insurance and so on during that time period. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this in roughly three phases. So that is some context for the furloughs and for why it is that this time, as opposed to 2009, we are actually having a webinar on applying for unemployment. All right. So again, this is painting with a very broad brush here. But you can think of unemployment as essentially 3 phases. Yes,
Roger,
Emily?
pause 1 second. People who have questions, it would behoove you to post them in the Q&A versus the chat, because then everyone else will see them besides the panelist. So I welcome you to, I'm going to continue to answer the ones in the chat, but please post your questions in the Q&A rather than the chat so that your colleagues, if they have the same question, will be able to see the answer as well. Thank you.
So, so think of unemployment as a sort of 3-phase process. The first phase is you're going to set up an account. All right, you're essentially going into the machinery and you're creating your identity. The second phase is going to be actually staking a claim for unemployment. It's going to be saying, I'm unemployed. And then the third phase is going to be certifying that, yes, you were right, you are unemployed. And so each of these phases are going to be laid out in what follows. So the first phase is setting up an account. Now, again, you will not be able to apply for unemployment this semester because 1 day of unemployment, that 1 furlough day after Thanksgiving, is not enough for you to be able to be considered unemployed in the eyes of the state to be able to give you any kind of money. However, you can, and we recommend that you should, create an account, even though you are not actually going to be applying for your unemployment benefits yet. So what we're going to walk through here is just the sort of straightforward, here's how you set up an account. All right. And again, one more time, you will not be able to actually apply for it until the first day of your furlough, but you can have the account already set up and ready to go. All right. So by the way, just so you know, my first day of my furlough is January 4th. So that's the first day I'm going to be able to apply for benefits. But what I plan to do before then is set up my account. So I've got it all set and ready to go. All right. So now, again, to our colleagues who have been through this before, if they hear me say anything off base, you'd say so. From my understanding, this is a somewhat antiquated system you're going to be interacting with. That is, it's not going to let you log out and have the information that you loaded up saved for you when you return. So what I'm about to lay out, you need to have prepared to do all in one sitting. Okay, you got to be set to go to do that. You'll need to go to their online system and you'll need to be able to enter the email address you want to use. The email address cannot contain more than 35 characters, and make sure that it's an email address you check regularly. This is the one that they are going to use to send all the important information to you. All right, so make sure it's one that you're going to be looking at on a regular basis. Now, after you do all this and you hit send, they will send you a link to verify that email address. That's active for 60 minutes. And it's going to be sent from that little address there, which I'm not going to bother to read to you, but that's the one it's going to be sent from. So some of you I know have got your email setups constructed so that you don't get a bunch of spam or anything like that. Well, make sure that this is listed as one of your safe senders so that it doesn't get booted off into the spam or the trash or whatever. Make sure it's in there and you can get the stuff. Okay. So click the link in the email they send in order to complete the initial registration process. Now, this link is going to expire after 60 minutes. All right. So if you do not complete the registration process within 60 minutes, you're going to need to re-enter your email address and have a new link set. So again, this is one of those things where just sit down, be prepared to, be patient, try not to have your friends or whatever calling you during this time period, because you just want to be focused on this. So they're going to want all the sorts of information that you would imagine, right? Don't do autofill. Fill this in manually, right? The things that can go wrong with auto, and partly what you're going to hear me say are mistakes that other people have made that when they did them, screwed up their process of applying for unemployment. So don't do autofill. So what you're going to want is your first and last name, your date of birth formatted in the following way, your social security number without the dashes, your phone number, numerals only, and the email address. And it's got to be the same one that you used to register. All right. So again, nothing that you're probably that surprised at, but I've been on more than one website where I thought they wanted the dashes in between things, and it kept screwing me up until I realized that they didn't. So they're going to want you to create a password. And obviously, I know I'm putting down things that are painfully obvious for you, but I think it's important just to be able to reiterate them. Don't share this with anyone, all right? And it has to contain the following: 8 characters, 1 number, 1 uppercase letter, at least 1 lowercase letter, and 1 of the special characters. All right, so again, these are the kinds of things you could do ahead of time. You could all have set ready for yourself on a legal pad right next to you, and then you could go ahead and do this. So this is all part of the process of creating your account. And when you've got that, okay, that's phase 1. Okay, the next phase is actually applying for unemployment. All right. Now, this is, again, not something that's going to happen until the first day of your furlough. For example, for me, it's going to be January 4th, 2021. That will be my first day that I'm applying for unemployment. All right. Because that's my first day that I'm not being employed. Okay. So as with creating the account, you need to be prepared to do all of this in one sitting. So the stuff I'm about to talk to you about, it's not going to let you save and then come back to it. Now, I may be wrong. Between now and January, they may do a complete overhaul and fix everything with the unemployment office such that this is more advanced. I'm not counting on it. All right. So it will not save it if you log off, and it won't save it if you're idle for more than 30 minutes. So what I'm about to lay out, you should save at least an hour for this. Just prepare yourself. This is for an hour. Emery, is there anything you think I should jump into at the moment? Okay. All right. And again, panelists, Stacy, Maria, Joe, anything thus far that you want to chime in with? Okay. So here's some stuff I want you to pay, like teachers the world over, right? I said, as opposed to all the other stuff where I didn't want you to pay attention, this stuff I'd really like you to pay attention to, right? But here's a couple of little tricky items. Now, the bank account number and the routing number, that's all fine if you're going to do direct deposit. I want to check with the professional staff who've done this. Did each one of you do direct deposit?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So most people I know these days do direct deposit. If you're not doing direct deposit, I would need to do a little more research on that in terms of how that goes. But if you're going to do direct deposit, then like you did with your paycheck here, have your bank account number and your routing number. All right. Have your social security number. Now, this is something I want you to watch out for. Here is one of the pitfalls that has thrown more than one individual. Okay, your employer of your last 18 months. That's presumably going to be Stockton, all right? What you want to type in is Richard Stockton State College. You don't want to type in Stockton University. You don't want to type in Richard Stockton University. You want to type in Richard Stockton State College. And here's the thing that may throw you. It's going to kick up a New Hampshire address. Don't start changing it. Don't alter it, right? This machinery is essentially outsourcing it to a company in New Hampshire. So your worry might be, oh my goodness, wait, no, there must be a different Stockton. I need to change this. No, don't correct this or try to make it be a New Jersey address. This is one of the areas in which we have seen people think that they were trying to do the accurate thing, and it's turned out to be a mistake. Okay. Now I'm not entirely clear about exactly when they ask this information, but at some point they're going to ask you for your recall date. That is, do you have a recall date? You will put down no definite recall date. All right. Even if you're going, but wait a minute, I'm going to be back that next week. No, you put down no definite recall date. All right. This again was something that I double checked a number of different times. And I will say that I think it makes a certain amount of sense. After all, we're presuming, right, these 5 furlough days are the only ones. That's all of our assumption and so on. But there could be some catastrophic meteor strike or whatever that takes the place. And you don't want to be in a situation where then it turned out that for some reason totally beyond our anticipation, you did need to go back again and recertify. I'll get to that. But you would put down, oh, I've got this definite recall date. So in that spot there, put down no definite recall date. They're going to ask for your union hall information, including the local number and address. Okay. We're not a union hiring hall, okay, but you'll put down AFT and your local number, which is 2275, all right? Now, we refer to ourselves as Stockton Federation of Teachers, but the general reference point for the state is that we are members of AFT. That is the union to which we all belong, American Federation of Teachers, okay? And our local is 2275, all right? The union mailing address is SFT 2275, P.O. Box 785, Pomona, New Jersey, 08240. Now, I'm not exactly sure if you need to even have the SFT 2275. The odds are fine that just giving the P.O. Box, Pomona, New Jersey, 08240 will be fine, all right? Anything that you need me to address? Okay. So again, we're putting this up. This is going to be available. We're recording this and we're going to put this up on the site. So it's not like you have to make sure you've written this down yourself, but do pay attention to those items there. Okay, now here's some information I've put down that you should have handy, possibly, all right? For many of you, this is not the case, but I did want to talk about these items as we go through, just to be clear. So you might need, again, for the vast majority of you, no, but an alien registration number. You might need a pension information, and you might need the amount and duration of any separation pay you may be receiving. Let me go through each one of those separately. In our negotiations with the state, and I believe it may even be one of our colleagues here, alerted the state, both sides, to the negotiating issue, about the problems that would be involved for our colleagues who are H-1B holders in that if they were listed in any way as unemployed, it could affect their status. So we negotiated with the state that H-1B holders are actually exempt from the furlough requirements. This meant, because again, our concern was we did not want them to suddenly have trouble and be booted out of the country because they're listed as unemployed. And so there's actually an explicit reference to them in the furlough memorandum of agreement. However, other visa holders who are not subject to the labor condition in the MOA might possibly be furloughed. All right, now I'm saying might possibly because I am not, there are many different kinds of visa holders, and this could turn into, frankly, just a presentation on visa holders, given the complexity that's involved in there. What we have located in there is a link that we hope should be able to help you if you are somebody who holds a visa in terms of what further information you might need. Okay, keep moving. Pension information. Now, this one has thrown some people as well. Again, any kinds of mistakes you make, please know you are not alone. Many, many people have trouble navigating this. So don't feel like, well, gosh, I should have known this. And so, for example, this is one that, from what our research says, has thrown some people. So you say in here, are you receiving or have you applied for a pension or other retirement pay for any of the employers? Now, I believe that by the very nature of our jobs, each one of you is paying into a pension or a retirement plan as we go through, right? I am playing into my TIAA CREF, right? But that's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for whether or not I'm paying into a pension plan. So what you need to do in there is say no, okay? If you're now they're going to give you a list of employers. Now, if you're receiving pensions from an employer that's not listed on that list, then you should also answer no. However, we have colleagues here who are faculty members, professional staff, librarians, and so on, who are receiving pensions in addition to their work, right? So we have a colleague who teaches, for example, in the criminal justice program, who was a police officer for many years and retired and was receiving a pension. That individual will need to put down in there what pension benefits they are receiving, because their pension benefits will not be stopping through this furlough process, right? They'll still be receiving that. And the unemployment office wants to know what money they might be receiving. The vast majority of you, though, should be putting down no, because you're not receiving any kind of pension as you go through this process. Finally, separation pay. As far as I know, none of you are going to be receiving any separation pay from Stockton during this time period, all right? But I know that there are some people who in their time at Stockton have worked both for Stockton and for another organization, a company or whatever. They might be receiving separation pay from them, and so that would be required information for them to put down. So for example, if I was acting as a consultant for a corporation and I was on a regular payroll with them, and this had already been worked out with Stockton and so on, and I was being let go during that time period, you could imagine them giving me a separation pay. Well, the unemployment obviously would like to know that I had received that money. But again, for the vast majority of you, no, you're not receiving any separation pay. You're certainly not going to be receiving it from Stockton. Stopping for a moment again, anything from our panelists? Okay. Okay, if you have worked somewhere in the past 18 months, okay, then if you were a federal employee, you're going to need your SF8 or your SF50. If you were in the military, you're going to need your DD-214. Now, I'm saying these things as if I have a clue as to what they reference. I have no idea whatsoever. I just know that in my research, if you had been working for someone, the feds, or the military in the previous 18 months, you needed to have that information available. I would strongly recommend that if you are somebody who was working for the feds 18 months ago in a different capacity or the military, that you research this more fully. This is the kind of information they're going to need: the complete name and address, the employee's telephone number, your occupation, the beginning and ending dates, and the reason for separation. But that's for those people that you were employed from before. When you've got all of that prepped, when you've got all that ready, okay, then you need to go to myunemployment.nj.gov to start your claim. Now, again, keep in mind what I said earlier. This is sort of a three-phase process. If you've already created an account, then you've done phase one. You've created an account. And then you would just come here and you would click on existing users log in here, right? Because even though you haven't applied yet for it, you have an account, and that's where they want you to go. If you still have yet to create an account, then go back to our previous parts of this, create the account, and then go through the process. This is what the little site should look like. Again, between now and January, I don't anticipate them changing this, but obviously they're not reaching out to me on a regular basis. But you can see there, new users register here, existing users log in here, check claim status, certify. This is the front page of where you would be going. All right, I just thought it would be helpful to you to see what the page looks like. So I took a screenshot, put it up here just so you could see. So now, here you are. You've got that information. You log in, you're ready and able to go in here. So these are the kinds of questions that they're going to ask you. And so we've broken this up into a sort of, this is the question, and then underneath here, this is the answer that you should be giving. So were you able and available for work? If you are out of work temporarily to an employer closure related to the coronavirus and expect to return to your job, select yes. So you're going to select yes. So again, this is going to be, really what I'm doing in here is trying to some extent demystify the process so that you know as you go through, oh, this isn't that bad, right? I can go through all this, it's fine, right? When you worked in New Jersey, did you live in state? If you live out of state and work in New Jersey, select yes. If yes, will you continue seeking work in New Jersey? Yes. All right, again, because you're applying for New Jersey unemployment. Are you ready, willing, and able to immediately work full-time? Yes. Okay, if you are out of temporary work and expect to return, yes. Now, some of these I've repeated, honestly, folks, because I wasn't entirely sure the order they were coming in. So don't expect this order to be the absolute exact order. There may be other questions that they ask in there, but I wanted, again, to give you a sense of what you would be looking at when you do it. Now, do you wish to have 10% federal income tax withheld from your benefits? Now, this is not a question that we can answer for you, but we do need you to keep in mind, you should think about it ahead of time and carefully consider your choice. Keep in mind that if you don't have them take out the 10%, you will have to pay it later, right? It's going to be one way or another. It's not always. I'm not exactly sure. I was trying to find this out and I wasn't able to. What the New Jersey policy is. I've heard both, which means that, obviously I'm not sure of the answer. But with regard to the federal income tax, it is the case, I know, that if you don't have it taken out here, you will have to declare it down the line. Do you wish to claim a dependency allowance? Yes or no. If you are also married to a state worker who is furloughed, only one of you can claim this additional allowance. So if both of you are furloughed at the same time, you can only declare this at that, one at a time. Are you a member of a union? Yes, you are. You are an AFT member, right? You're in there, so you should say yes. But they're going to say, do you seek work through a union hiring hall? And for that, you would answer no. All right. So because we're not like the plumbers or the sheetrock workers, we're not a union which would have a hall that you would normally be going down to and saying, I'm available for work, can you find me jobs, right? So you don't have a union hiring hall, even though you are a member of a union. And then you're going to have a question about, how do you wish to receive them, direct deposit or debit? If you go with direct deposit, you're going to have the information that we were talking about before, your banking and routing number, and they have the debit cards. I have not talked to anyone who's done the debit card move. I am planning on doing the direct deposit, but that's just my preference. If you wind up talking to someone who knows about the debit cards, they may be able to give you more information.
Just a side note about the direct deposit. Generally speaking, and Roger will talk about the recertification process, but generally you do receive a deposit about 2 days after you recertify. So it does come rather quickly once you are able to recertify.
Thank you, Stacy. So again, there's, but as I say, I mean, regrettably in our current climate, you probably, each one of you knows someone who has been unemployed, so they may have their own experiences in terms of how they view this. This is based on our experience with CWA, and as I say, with our SFT members who have already been through the process. Now, the state employer payroll number, this, you would not even believe the number of hours I spent trying to get an answer to this, which is, what is the state employer payroll number? The number of high-level, extraordinarily competent and decent, hardworking people who work in HR and payroll who said, I'm not sure what they're talking about, was almost universal. What the general consensus is that if you have filled in the proper information prior to this, that is Richard Stockton State College, you haven't changed it to New Jersey, just left everything alone, you've put in your social security and something, this will automatically populate this information. In other words, the machinery at the unemployment office will just automatically put in this number. And again, when I talked to Stacy, Maria, and Joe, none of them even remembered having to try to crank up the state employer payroll number, that it was populated automatically for them. If I've misremembered, please chime in. Okay. Are you still employed by this employer? Yes, you are still employed. Okay, you're not laid off, you are furloughed. There's a big difference in there. Okay. If yes, explain the reason why. Now this gets, again, a little fine-grained, but it should do it in the following phases. Explain the reason why. Well, there's a reduction in hours by employer. What's the reason for this? And there's going to be an option in there, which is going to be listed as other, COVID-19 related. That's the one you're going to click on. All right. So when it's looking for why are you essentially not doing this, that's what you're going to be clicking on. Do you expect to be recalled? Yes, but no under do you have a definite date of recall? Okay. Thus far, okay? Again, I'm stopping to have any questions for me. All right. Now, for faculty members, this is a question which I thought might be one that could possibly throw you, right? So for many people, and frankly, I think this is true of everybody, professional staff, librarians, faculty, you're working all the time, right? So if you really thought about, well, when was the last day I worked? It'd be like, well, frankly, 28 minutes before I started this whole friggin' thing, right? But actually what they're looking for is the following. You will be furloughed essentially on a Monday. Officially, your furlough day will be Monday. As far as the unemployment office is concerned, the last day you worked was the Friday before that. So, for example, I will be furloughed on Monday, January 4th. So that means that on that Friday beforehand is the last day that I worked. And that's the day that I'll put down as my last paid day. So don't worry about Saturday, don't worry about Sunday. Put down that Friday before your furlough day. Is that, okay, good. We'll just keep going on with that. Employment details. They're not going to give you holiday pay. They're not going to give you payment in lieu of notice, vacation, separation, continuation pay, or any other pay after that Friday. Those 5 days. I mean, again, let's remember the whole exercise, the whole point of them doing this is their argument that we are in financially horrific circumstances and all of us need to tighten our belts, blah, 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 blah. And so that's why they're going to take money away from us for 5 days. Emery.
Roger, some questions have come in about listing January 1st, which is
Yes,
the Friday before.
And that's one of the ones I want to check about as well in terms of whether or not it's going to be December 31st or January 1st in terms of our last paid day. And so, so thank you, folks. I was thinking much the same thing myself. I wasn't quite sure about that. What I would like to do is have that put in our list of questions that we're going to be researching. And then we can reach out to the unemployment office and ask them more specifically about that, as well as find out from our own management how that works. As far as I know, I still get paid for January 1st. So that's still my last paid day, right? Even though it's a quote unquote vacation day, but it's a good question and one that we'll investigate further. All right, so that is the process of essentially filing for unemployment. And notice that what you've done, you're doing it on your first day that you're actually furloughed, because that's the first day you're technically unemployed. And if you would imagine it in a situation where you could imagine if you were in a job where you're like, okay, now I'm not sure where my next meal is coming from, right? So that's the first day that you're going to file for unemployment. In the world we live, right, someone might, weirdly enough, be hired back the next day, right? So the way the unemployment office sets this up is that they then have a certification process, a weekly certification process. And what that means is that 1 week later, I'm then going to go in and certify, yes, indeed, it wasn't a nightmare. I really was unemployed for this week. And that's this process here called the certification process. Now, for each of you, I believe, who are watching this, this is going to be a little different than when you talk to your professional staff colleagues and fellow members of the union, because many of them had essentially a 2-week block back to back, right? So they had to certify and then recertify as they went through the process because they were being furloughed for essentially a 10-day shot, okay? You will be only furloughed for a 5-day slot, but this process is still the same. Okay, so unemployment insurance weeks, as far as the unemployment office goes, begins on a Sunday and ends at midnight on Saturday. So that's their working week as far as they're concerned. It's Sunday to midnight on Saturday. All right. So this is why I'm going to say, okay, my first day of unemployment was January 4th, right? But my claim period will be January 3rd to January 10th. That is the time period within which I am saying I was unemployed. So in terms of their world, the units they're dealing with are from Sunday to Saturday midnight. Within that time frame, I was unemployed for 5 days. But my claim period, the way in which they break those units up, are from the Sunday to the Saturday midnight. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to have to go in and I'm going to have to say, on the designated time period I'm allowed to say this, I was in fact unemployed for the period from January 4th to January 8th, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And then that's my certifying that I am unemployed for that time period. Now, here's the thing. There is a schedule in which you get to do this. I don't get to just hop on and say at any time I want, oh, by the way, this was when I was unemployed. They post the schedule on Saturday night in terms of when you get to go in and certify. All right, and it's done on the last 4 digits of your social security number. So my last 4 digits, let's pretend they're 0651. I would go in there and I would look for the schedule for those people on that particular setup. And then it gives me my time period in which I get to go in and certify. All right. So and again, it's going to happen every time like this. Now, to receive my unemployment insurance benefits, I have to go online and certify for the benefits for each week I wish to receive the benefits. Now, again, for the purposes of those people watching this webinar, since I imagine the vast majority of you are faculty, it's going to just be this 5-day period, right? Unless, again, this meteor strikes, there will be this 5-day period, and then you're back to work that next week. So that's the only days you're going to get to certify for. Those are the only days you're going to qualify for getting the benefits, okay? So it's only after the quote-unquote work week has passed. Remember how they view it. So Saturday at midnight, are you eligible then, able to certify for your benefits for that week? All right, so once you've got that, you're going to need to go in there and you're going to need to certify that you've got this. Now, this is another link we've put in there, which has, we hope, this is from the unemployment group, right, from the Unemployment New Jersey, and it's about COVID instruction questions. So things that we may have missed, you can go through here and take a look at this. Okay, they're going to ask for your earnings information, your social security number, your PIN, and the earnings for the week you're claiming. Now, you're not getting paid anything during that week. Now, here's another area where we're going to do some more research and find out about. But again, our colleagues who've been through this before do not actually recall having filled this out. It might be that they ask for your hourly rate. Now, again, stressing might. As I say, Stacy, Maria, and Joe, all of whom went through this, don't actually recall ever having to fill this out, okay? So it may well be populated by the machinery because, again, by this time, the machinery knows who you are, where you work, right? And thereby has that information available to it. I know I feel like I'm talking about the matrix, but it should have all of that available to do that. If it's not the case, in my conversations with HR, this was our understanding of what they would be asking. But again, this is highly, highly provisional in the sense of my confidence level of this is not as high as the other stuff. But I would look at my biweekly salary, my base salary. I would divide that by 70 because the university believes that I work 70 hours over 2 weeks. Yes, I'm not kidding. It views me as working just 70 hours for 2 weeks, which means that they think I only work 35 hours in a week. So I would take my base salary, divide it by 70. That number then would give me my hourly rate. I would multiply it by 35, and that would give the amount I was supposed to have been paid that week. One more time, this is highly provisional, this little piece of information right here. And we're going to continue to try to investigate it further. But we didn't want to hold off doing this webinar until we had absolutely every question answered, because quite frankly, we knew that it was important for many of you to at least get a sense of what it was you would be looking at when you were declaring unemployment, and given the fact that many of you, I'm sure, have never gone through this process before. Okay, so how long will it take? Well, your claim is dated the Sunday of the week in which you filed your initial first claim, okay? And you should be receiving instructions in the mail, in your email, about when you should, after the claim is filed. All right. But again, you're only talking about 1 week. You're not going to be going back in like our colleagues who were being furloughed for 2 straight weeks where they had to be keeping an eye on all of this. All right. Now, I have heard a variety of different things. Some people, such as Stacy's experience was, she received her unemployment very quickly. Okay. Other people have had more problems. So our recommendation, just as the union, for what it's worth, is that you make sure that you've budgeted very carefully for this week. As you can see, even if everything goes absolutely smoothly, it all is just a piece of cake. And even if you get paid immediately, almost immediately, what you will be receiving from unemployment is not going to be replacing your salary as it currently stands. But I will say this, when we were in the process of negotiating with the state, it was not a hard decision for us in terms of whether or not we should agree to a MOA, which would allow our members to get an extra potential $1,200 versus not. So our view was, okay, look, applying for unemployment's a pain in the ass. It's really, it's not something I like to do. I'm not really thrilled about having these 5 days all at once. But if that's the only way that we could reduce the financial burden that was going to be happening to our members, it really wasn't a hard decision for us to make. And for our professional staff colleagues, it was definitely not a hard decision to make because we were working extremely quickly to make sure that they could avail themselves of the additional money that the government was providing for them during that month of July. So again, check the schedule. See when your current Social Security number is scheduled to certify for the week. When it is your time to log on, go ahead and answer the required questions. You have 30 minutes to be able to do it, but it's very quick. It is not, it's not one of these things where you need to be prepared for 50 minutes to be able to do it. It's something that I believe Stacy told me it took her a couple of minutes at most to be able to do this.
I did it on my cell phone.
Yeah, so this is not the particularly challenging one. And if you happen to miss it, something happens, you have to take care of your child or a parent or somebody else, and you miss your time, there are catch-up dates for you to be able to do it. But again, you'll need to use the last 4 digits of your Social Security number to be able to determine when those dates are. Okay. So that, I've noticed, as always with my presentations, both to my colleagues and to my students, I've managed to cut in half the number of people that began with me. And eventually, if I keep going, I'm sure it will just be the panelists and myself. But that is our introduction for you into the process of declaring for unemployment. I need to say a couple of things, though, before I continue. We have a subset of faculty who are currently doing a combined leave plus also working, and there are a number of areas in which this is all coming together. Our recommendation with you is to reach out to human resources and say, help me walk through this. There are not so many of you that you are going to swamp human resources, and they are aware. I've given up a heads up to human resources that you may be reaching out to them, and you can go through this process with them and say, look, I'm one of those individuals. I am teaching, but I'm also taking a leave, and how that works with your furlough. But again, this will not be something in terms of the unemployment that you need to be concerned about until, quite frankly, January. So before we leave, is there any questions that we could answer that you think Emery or Stacy or anyone else who's manning the chat functions at the moment? I'm assuming that we've gathered up those questions, and we'll do our best to get them back to you. I would please encourage you, although, again, there's fewer of you, I should have done this earlier. please reach out to our colleague, Phil Polsinelli, all right? Phil Polsinelli is the one who will help you activate your SFT Union account. And your SFT Union account comes with its own Google suite. And as long as you're a member of the union, you'll be able to access it and use it. It also comes with your own SFT Union Gmail. We really encourage you to use that. There are a number of conversations we might want to have with you, but we would not like to use the Stockton account or any accounts which are monitored by Stockton. I'm not saying that they are looking at our emails and so on, but I am saying that as far as my understanding of employment law, managers have the right to review emails of their employees. But if you're emailing us from your SFT Union account and we're responding back in your SFT Union account, that's great. Then it's just us on our own, in our own situation in here. And I see people answering some questions. I don't want to shut down the webinar just yet, as long as we can answer some questions for you now rather than holding off. Now, yeah, Emery, please.
So again, the question has come in about overload pay. You are still eligible for unemployment, but you have to acknowledge that you're receiving other income.
Right.
Okay.
Because again, they're going to want to say, oh, so this is the, this is what, so it is our furloughs, I believe, are based on our base salary. And so what the unemployment office quite rightly wants to say is, okay, well, but were you getting any other money during that week? So for example, I will need to put down as the union president, I receive a stipend. I will need to acknowledge that as money that I am receiving. Now, again, you take that stipend, you spread it out over 52 weeks. It's not going to make a big dent in all of this, but it is something that I need to be prepared to put down in my when I'm filling out this information.
Right, and I'll say from my experience, the stipend didn't impact the amount I received from unemployment.
Right, which yeah, again, this gives you a sense of how pathetically we are paid, which is that it didn't make any dent whatsoever in our application for unemployment. Any other questions? Any, folks, Joe, Maria, Stacy, is there anything that we've covered today that you're thinking, you know, I wish they had talked about the following?
Nothing comes to mind specifically, but some people are asking if you can just give the best way to contact Phil Polsinelli.
Oh, so
somebody just put it in the chat.
Oh, great. So if you go to the contact, well, wait, did someone give the answer in the chat or, oh, okay. So,
it's in the chat in the Q&A right now.
Thanks. Other, Maria, do you have anything that you want to say? I wish they had talked about the following in terms of applying for unemployment.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. This group of people is so much like one of my classes, it's just staggering. Do any of you have anything? So Emery, of course, who was once my student, is still in there kicking, going, I'll ask him a question, sad fellow that he is. So
your presentation was just so excellent.
There's a question that's come up several times, I think, because not everyone arrived at the same time. So the average weekly salary, the questions are about, is it over 12 or 10 months? But that's going to depend on, go ahead, do you want to answer that? Go ahead.
No, so this is a really important question. Okay, so for example, I am one of the people that has availed themselves of the opportunity that the university provides of taking my 10-month salary, because I am a 10-month employee. All faculty at Stockton are listed as 10-month employees. Professional staff such as Stacy and Joe and Maria are 12-month employees. The librarians are also 12-month employees. So their salary is calculated on the basis of this 12 month. But Stockton does provide us with this opportunity to take our 10-month salary and spread it out over the 12 months so that we're not scrambling in early August to try to pay our bills, right? Now, we can talk more about this, but what they are looking at is our base salary. So if it is the case that it turns out that we do need to be able to provide what the hourly is, what I have on my pay stub, and you can even see it, is you'll see my salary, and almost immediately underneath it, you will see a thing called deferral pay. And what that is it's how much the university is taking out of each one of my paychecks to put away into their, into the bank that they will then distribute out over the months of July and August. So the number that the state, the unemployment office is actually looking at is that total figure. That's what it is, combined in there. But now again, I'm hoping that this is something that the more I research it, you're going to find you don't actually even need to worry about, that it will just be populated by the software. But we will continue to do that. But yes, for those of us that take that advantage of the university and we stretch our 10-month over the 12-month, you will see in your, and this may be something you find useful for other purposes, you'll see your salary, and then underneath it, you're going to see a thing saying salary deferral. And it's a certain amount of money that's taken from each one. I hope that answered the question. Others? All right, as we say, this is going to be posted up. The union has been putting together, again, many thanks to Emery and to Sue and to all the people that have worked together to create a kind of bank of webinars that we've been doing that people can then access because, it's not like your lives are incredibly simple these days or ever were simple. And so being able to access them at a time of more convenience is critical. And as we say, we may very well do this again, some version of it in December. The rest of the panelists may go, yeah, you may, Raj. We're going to be gone. I'm not sure what you'll be doing. You can do it all by your lonesome if you like. But if we find any further information or there's anything that alters, please rest assured we will keep you posted, as we always do. Is there anything else, folks, do you think, or should I let them all go off to their evening classes or dinner or whatever else they got to do? All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.